Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Open to Life podcast. This is episode 21, and I'm so excited for today's episode because today I am with Sarah Bartel, a Catholic moral theologian, sex and marriage coach, creator of the My Delight course for Catholic engaged and married women, and host of the My Delight podcast. Well, welcome on, Sarah. Thank you for
Thank you
being
so much
here.
for having me. I'm just delighted to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have this conversation with you today. I don't remember how I first discovered your ministry. I think I first discovered about your ministry with your husband, Cana Feast.
Yeah,
Probably through some other Catholic email list I was on. I think it may have been what was it called? Money Wallet? Catholic
Wallet
Wallet?
Win with
Wallet
Jonathan and
Win. I
Amanda
think maybe
Sarah.
I somehow got an ad for Wallet Win, got on their email list, and then discovered your ministry with your husband, and then discovered your personal lane ministry, the My Delight, and I had the pleasure opportunity to do the My Delight course. I think maybe it had been over a year ago now. I think I was freshly postpartum, but I really wanted to jump on in and do the course, and I'm so thankful for all the golden nuggets and pieces of theology that I got to learn through your course.
So glad you were in it. You
Yeah.
contributed a lot. You were like lively in the group discussions, and I always like it when people talk up.
Yeah, yeah. And then I also love your podcast, My Delight. I have binged all the episodes. I keep up. And yeah, definitely want to encourage everyone to go take a listen to the My Delight podcast. There's a lot of good golden nuggets over there about sex and theology from the Catholic theologian's lens.
Well, thank you. I'm so glad it's getting out there. Hopefully,
Yeah.
hope it's helpful to people, to women
Yeah.
especially.
So, Sarah, could you start off by sharing with us a little bit of your personal journey? What led you to be the Catholic moral theologian that you are and dedicating your work to marriage, family, and even sharing the good news about Catholic sex?
Yeah, you know what? I was influenced. I was influenced by St. John Paul II. I'm a St. John Paul II generation woman. In my teen years, he was Pope. I went to World Youth Day and read his documents. And when I was in college, just really caught fire, like wanting to study theology more and do something in the church. So I went to graduate school and focused on moral theology there. You know, I was actually split. Like I was initially thinking of studying historical theology, but I will tell you, Melanie, it was actually when a pro-life speaker came through, Stephanie Gray. She's a Canadian. She debates people. She gave a great presentation, a great pro life talk on the campus of the Catholic University of America in my first year of graduate studies. And I had been in the pro life movement also. I had started the pro life group at Gonzaga University when I was an undergrad. I had done pro life activism in my high school years as well.
Oh, that's so cool to
Yeah,
hear. I
so I
love
guess I didn't
hearing that.
really like share that before as much, but yeah, so I was like, for sure, I'm going to go hear this pro life speaker, even though I was in a different phase of life. At that point, I was married, no kids yet. But wow, it just really impacted me hearing her speak. And that convinced me, like, I don't think I want to study and, like devote the next however many years of graduate school just to studying history, important as that is, instead of historical theology. I want to focus on moral theology because that is where the rubber hits the road with the issues of today and
Mm.
people's choices and impacting their lives today. So that is when I made the switch after I heard her talk. I was definitely interested in the beginning of life issues, but also marriage and family and sexual ethics. And since I was somewhat newly married, I was just married 2 years by the time I started graduate school. And I'd really carefully like discerned, I was thinking of a vocation to religious life and checked that out and really felt God calling me to merit the vocation of marriage. And that really like I wanted to study more. Like, this is important to know. Marriage is a vocation. And John Paul II was talking all about how we need holy married couples. I think that was like the perfect storm of inspiration to help me focus on studying the theology of marriage and sexual ethics in graduate school.
Yeah, I've heard Stephanie speak in person maybe a couple times. I heard Trent Horn say once that he thought of Stephanie as like the female version of him because they both
Oh,
have like a
you're just dating.
similar like speaking style or debate style. So I definitely enjoy the way how Stephanie goes about articulating our views as Catholics and standing firm in our theology. And wow, that's amazing. So you are a mother of five and been married for 25 years? Is this the
Yeah,
25th
that's
year?
right. 25th anniversary this year. Yeah.
Wow. When did you celebrate your anniversary?
It was in May. Yeah.
Oh, nice. That's when my son turned one. So,
Oh,
yeah, in November, my husband and I will celebrate 3 years, which that just seems crazy because it's like the other day we were in
congratulations.
college and now we're like going on 3 years and married. Like, oh my goodness. But wow, so your 25th year. So, how has your personal vocation shaped also your professional ministry?
Yeah, very much. It has been a huge factor. I'm so thankful and grateful for my vocation of marriage. Really idealistic. I studied the theology of marriage. Literally, that was what I focused on in graduate school. So I knew theology of the body and the church's beautiful teachings about the sacrament of marriage. And then when I left grad school, lo and behold, my own husband and I hit a lot of life stressors all at once. And we had some hard times in our own marriage relationship. And that was a big wake up call to both of us. We're both nerdy and brain, like he got a master's in philosophy. So we read the books, we, believed the teachings, but we realized we needed to learn how to make them felt in our daily life and how to go on a journey from head to heart. And we did that by going on marriage retreat that really impacted us and helped us immensely. It was a Theology of the Body inspired marriage retreat by an organization that's now called, I think they're called Every Day in Love. And at the time it was called Living in Love. And that gave us a whole set of tools for nurturing our emotional connection and like just how to approach helping each other feel loved in daily life. Because you can read the words from Theology of the Body, that we're supposed to be like an echo of the Trinity and be total self-gift. That is true. But then, like, how do you do that with your words, your attitude, your actions in your own kitchen, in your own living room and bedroom, and, doing errands and all of that daily life stuff? So that really helped us, and it convinced us, like, we wanted to share that with others. So we became leaders and presenters with this organization's retreats and help put some on in our area. But then we also, after a while, we realized not everybody who needs this great material can get to it. They can't do a weekend retreat because they've got, obligations. Maybe kids have sports games, or, one or the other of them works a Saturday shift or don't have childcare, grandparents aren't in town, or they don't have friends who can watch their kids for a whole weekend. So we decided to take it online and to put together our own marriage ministry using what we learned in grad school, what we learned from our own experiences, what we've been reading in secular psychology about flourishing marriages and relationships, and infusing it with our Catholic spirituality as well. So we created our own online marriage ministry called Cana Feast. And another part of how my vocation shaped this was I really wanted the babies and dreams life. Do you know, like Leah Darrow talks about, like, because you're having babies doesn't mean you need to give up on your dreams. And I really
Mm-hmm.
lived that in grad school. That's when I had my first two daughters while I was, in a PhD program at one of our nation's top theology schools. So my professors, many of them worked with me to enable me to bring my infant to class when my eldest daughter was just, little. Or, I would show up before she was born. It was kind of funny because at Catholic University of America, a lot of dioceses send their seminarians or their priests there to get additional degrees. And so in the upper level graduate seminars, there would be like a couple seminarians, and it's more conservative out there on the East Coast than here on the West Coast where you and I live now. So they were in like full cassocks. Cassocks.
Cassets, that's the one.
Yeah. Or like the black shirt with the Roman collar and the black slacks. Right. So there'd be a couple seminarians, a priest, maybe a bishop from an Eastern rite, and then one other lay person, a guy, a single guy, and then the pregnant woman. Like one of these things is not like the other. So I was like, well, and it was great because we were studying John Paul II's like letter on the dignity and vocation of women. And, I'm like, okay, I'll be your visual aid for woman. But I really wanted to, pursue God's call to strive for excellence in my formation and to do something that would impact the culture and impact people's lives with my degree, while also being really hands-on as a mom, really present to my family. And I personally felt called to stay home with my kids. So I wanted to do some sort of career where I could be home, and I homeschooled my kids, still am. We've done different mixes, like not exclusively homeschooling, but that has been a big part of how I've raised most of our kids. And with working online, it works. Like I can do things online and also be home. It's kind of a dream come true, actually. And I never would have foreseen how it would all play out when I was, a first year grad student, newly married, hoping to have kids, not quite sure where God would lead all this. But I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. So any women listening who you're called to do something, to make a contribution, do something significant, and you also, be home with your kids or, have kids. I think I've become really like grateful for all the different varieties of motherhood that we have, as Catholics. Like St. John of Brettamola, she was a working mom. And so is St. Zélie. Martin, St. Therese's mom. But anyway, I wanted both. I wanted to have park days with my kids in the middle of the week and bake and, do homeschool field trips, and also do something that would really help change people's lives. So I hope that answers what you were asking, but my own experience of like the kind of mother life I wanted and kind of like responding to that call of John Paul II to, do not be afraid to give Christ your life, and you're made for greatness. Don't settle for mediocrity. Be light and salt in the world and leaven in culture. All that has kind of come together to shape what I'm doing now.
Yeah, I definitely resonate with what you're saying about creating the type of motherhood you wanted to experience. And that's definitely what I hope for with myself also. And sometimes you just got to get creative. Like right now, recording, my husband is with our son at the park around the corner, so I can record in peace. And I'm really thankful. And like during the daytime, I try to be fully present with my son, and I mainly work when he naps, and I just work within the nap time, and I really want to be fully present. And I've learned a lot about like the first 3 years especially are very important to be there and be present. And I hope to pursue homeschooling at some point, God willing. Hope God will give us more children. And but I really hope for that too, of like to be a present wife and mother, and also pursue the calling that God has also given me on my life to fight for the babies, to end abortion, to help women. And I think that there's ways we can do both. I've definitely been in conversations with people who see it that that's not an option for women, and I think that we can. I think so long as we remember our primary vocations, I mean, first to God, and then as wives and mothers, and then I think whatever that next calling is that God has given us, I think as long as things don't get out of order, that we can do what God is asking us to do. But I guess we got to get creative at times.
That's it. It's that creativity, not being rigid, being able to be flexible, and just That's exactly right. It's been so richly rewarding, and I'm really grateful.
So, okay, there is a popular claim, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about this, that Catholics have better sex. Actually, a few months ago, I had one friend who was outside the Supreme Court at some protest that was happening. She was countering the pro-abortion people outside SCOTUS, and she had on this giant bra, she wrote, Catholics have better sex, because she was trying to get in the media, get them to want to take pictures of her looking interesting holding up the giant bra, and it worked. The cameras did take pictures of her, and she later joked to me that some people read it, Catholics better have sex. They like misread the directions of her writing. But yeah, so that's one funny story, but it is something that I have heard time and time again. So I'd love to hear from maybe your research and ministry experience, how true is this claim? Why might this be the case that, yes, indeed, Catholics have better sex?
Well, I would say that we have the potential. We have these beautiful teachings on the meaning and sacredness and goodness of sex in our Catholic, in our theology, in our doctrines. But my work is to help women who are engaged or prepare for lovemaking in Catholic marriage, or to help Catholic wives learn how to enjoy lovemaking. So what I see is the women who are struggling, and it looks like there's a lot of them to me. Like this, it just looks like there's a lot of suffering in this area. So I don't know. I would want to see numbers or a study or something, because I think that Catholic women are struggling just as much as women in other denominations, or even women in the culture who are secular, not churchgoers or other religions. I think it's just hard for women. We kind of lose, we're sort of the losers from both purity culture and porn culture.
Mm,
And both of those are very loud, and they take up a lot of the bandwidth in our cultural consciousness, even if we're inside the church. Right?
mhm.
Even though our teachings are such that like we shouldn't hear those messages, and the purity culture messages can really tangle and entwine and seem like they're holy and godly, and that just sort of distorts it. So I would be a little skeptical, first of all, of that claim.
Okay.
But if it is true, I would rejoice and say that's great. But the reason for that would be like if we're really understanding our teaching and really
Mm,
living it out, and in a way that's mutual. Our church documents are so clear about the mutuality of sex in marriage, and that's yeah. So that would be the reason why would be my hope there. Yeah.
yeah, purity culture in my upbringing, even up to the night before my wedding, I never was talked to about sex. I mean, maybe I got one talk of like, this is a thing that married people do, but that was it, and nothing deeper other than probably that simple sentence. And it wasn't until actually I got involved in the pro-life movement that I then learned about NFP. And I think once I got into the NFP world, then I started hearing about the beauty of sex. Not that I thought it was not beautiful. I guess I just hadn't formed an opinion before I started hearing about sex in a way I'd never heard it described to me before. So that's definitely an interesting point of like the purity culture, and just reflecting on my own upbringing, and it was just never talked about. And I definitely hope that that's something, well, not hope because it is going to happen, but I know that's something I'm going to change within my own family that God gives me, that it's going to be, God willing, not just one conversation, but ongoing conversations at levels of that it's, I guess, makes sense to talk about
Age
different
appropriate,
ages.
but a
Yeah,
safe topic, right? Like we can talk about this. This is part of life. And
make my children know that I'm a safe person to come to. I want you to come to me with your questions. I'm thankful that you're coming to me, and I am receptive and ready to talk to you about your questions and hard topics. So, we got to be the change we want to see, and I'm thankful that I get to be that change within my own family. Yeah.
That's wonderful.
You mentioned church teaching. So, how do our Catholic teachings on marriage and sexuality that are often maybe misunderstood as restrictive, how do our church teachings actually lay down the foundation for a more fulfilling sex life, more fulfilling intimacy?
Oh, that's such a great question. I love that. Before I dive into it, I just want to do a little footnote, if I may, to the previous topic of talking to your kids about sex.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
If this is something that, anyone listening, this caught your ear and you're like, I don't even know how to get equipped to do that. I just
Mhm.
want to direct people to the work of Dr. Julia Sadusky. She is a Catholic. She's a doctorate in psychology. And she has written a book, something like How to Start Talking to Your Kids About Sex for Catholic Parents, and then one about
Mm.
talking to your teens about sex. I don't remember the exact words of the titles, but look up Dr. Julia Sadusky, Sadusky, because she has some great resources on that. And then she actually graciously gave me an interview for my Delight podcast. And that's one of my most listened to episodes, and she gave such great information in there. So I just wanted to put a little flag to go find out more there, because it's so impactful and actually protective of our kids, protecting them from the harms of sexual abuse. If we can destigmatize sex, teach them the proper words for their body parts, the actual medical terminology, be able to say, before she said, before we go to a play date or go to the get together at someone's house, okay, remember our family rules. We don't let anyone touch our private parts. They don't go in anybody's mouths, because this stuff happens a lot. At least half the women in my courses, each cohort, have been victims of past sexual abuse, whether it was in childhood or their young adult years or teen years. And so it's hugely protective of your kids to be able to have these conversations, to tell them, we actually have a rule that no one is to touch your private parts because you're special and precious. And then if, heaven forbid, something should happen and someone should molest or sexually abuse your kids, the fact of them being able to talk with you, the mom or dad, about it without shame and fear, and to get help and therapy and whatever it is they need right away, helps protect them from it being recorded in their brain as a deep trauma,
Mm,
because grown-ups were there believing them,
yeah.
talking to them about it, caring about them. It doesn't get stuffed and hid and then shrouded up in this shame tangle that then years later causes problems. So I just wanted to make sure to point that out for the kids. We care about the kids, right? And we want to
Yeah,
protect
yeah.
them. Yeah. But then, okay, to move on to this really great question about how Catholic teachings on marriage and sexuality, which often are, you're so right, they're often misunderstood as restrictive, because we're like, can't do this, can't do that. No masturbation, no contraception, no pornography, no sex before marriage, no homosexual sex. But that actually lays the foundation for more fulfilling intimacy, because all the no's protect the yes of what sex is
Mm,
actually meant for, what sex is designed by God to express in marriage, to fulfill its purpose. And I just want to carefully point something out. So those no's, those prohibitions, they do help preserve sex for its proper setting. So here, I don't know if anyone's watching the video, I'm showing my very simple engagement ring here. I have a teeny tiny sweet little diamond in a gold setting, right? And that gold band, it sets and anchors the jewel. It gives it its place. It protects it. Like my little diamond, I wouldn't just leave it around in the junk drawer, right? To roll around or go through the wash or anything. It has a place. It's precious. I want to protect it. And I want it to have its purpose, which is to show, this is so symbolic and it's meaningful. My husband bought this for me, to ask me to marry him. And it back when we were in our early 20s, and so had barely any money. And it's, yeah, It's sentimental, of course, for me as well. But it has a setting, right? Just like sex has a proper setting in marriage. So the no's help prevent sex from rolling around in the junk drawer, so to speak, right? Or going through the wash, or, being used like as a hammer, or, to like pick your teeth or whatever. Like, it has a use. Let's not misuse it. But I also want to say, and this is sort of like another footnote, if you will, for the purity culture, just because you follow all the rules and save sex for marriage, avoid contraception, don't watch pornography, that does not guarantee you that you're going to have great sex in marriage. It just prevents you from misusing it and harming yourself and others in those ways. But it's not enough to like ensure that you're going to really thrive and enjoy and, build together a great love life in your marriage. And I think that's important to state, because I think there's this implicit assumption that if we're good and we follow the rules and we do things God's way and we follow church teaching, then your reward is going to be sex is going to be great in marriage.
Everything will be easy.
It'll be so easy. No, don't even have to think about it. Don't have to learn, work at it, figure things out. It'll just come naturally. And that's an assumption that so many of the women in my courses have had. And then they feel deeply wronged. They feel like, Gibbs, I did everything right. We did everything right. Why is sex hard? Why are we struggling? Why is it not good for me? There are reasons for that. So the teachings are good and they, prevent us from getting hurt in other ways, but there's still a lot to learn and you still need to go through that natural human process of learning how to build a beautiful love life together mutually in your marriage. So that's what I would say there, that, the restrictions are so important to keep you from getting used, to keep you from misusing yourself, your body, this intimate part of yourself, your sexuality. But I like how you worded your question to lay the foundation for fulfilling intimacy. Like, don't do any of these harmful things. And then also let's add on, build emotional connection, learn about how your body works, learn about how female sexuality works, be able to talk about it with your husband, be able to talk about your past together, be able to communicate when you're not having sex about sex, and then when you're having sex about how it's going. And
yeah, that reminds me, when I first learned the Creighton method of natural family planning, there's this acronym SPICE. Are you familiar with
oh
SPICE?
yeah, I've been around the block. I've been in the NFP and pro-life world. I know about spicy Creighton.
Yeah. So I think the idea is, during times of abstaining from sex, to remember you can always spice things up. And I think it's spiritual, physical, intellectual, spot, communication, and emotion. So
And
that
I
you
would say, like,
feel
you
other
need all
things.
those, even when you're not abstaining, so that sex isn't just perfunctory and physical only. You have to have this
Yeah.
all those kinds of spiritual, communicative, intellectual, and emotional intimacy. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us, what are some of maybe the biggest misconceptions you've seen working with Catholic women, of some preconceived beliefs about sex, and how do you help women with reframing those ideas? The first thing that comes to my mind, I think the biggest thing, is the idea of marital debt. But yeah, what are some biggest misconceptions you've seen working with Catholic women?
Let's start with that one, because I didn't even realize all through my grad school, marital debt never came up in any of the church teachings. And there's a really good reason for that, which I'll get back to in a minute. But it wasn't until I was pretty well underway with beginning to serve women in this specific area of sexuality that some women started saying, like, heard, or like, that they started mentioning marital debt. And I'm like, wait, what? What is this? They're like, yeah, Thomas Aquinas or St. Alphonsus Luigi, or right, talking about marital debt. Or I don't know if we're going to name them, but certain traditionalist priest podcasters were mentioning it, who are very popular and maybe also famous for exorcism stuff. And so I was like, what's this? And I checked into the teachings again. I checked back with my moral theology dissertation director at CUA. I looked back at the church's documents. The reason that I never heard about marital debt as I studied the church's documents on sexuality is that it is not there. It is not there. It is not official church teaching, even if some saints had mentioned it in the past. Just because a saint says something doesn't mean that now it's officially taken up into church teaching. But lo and behold, I came to learn that especially in TLM communities, and it can vary by community, this is taught as if it were church teaching with great confidence and authority, and with these specific rules and guidelines, which are based on, I don't know what, they seem arbitrary to me. Like apparently, according to these, a woman is under pain of sin to refuse her husband's sex, to decline his initiation unless he's drunk or under the influence of substances, or to get pregnant would make her die, or they don't have sufficient privacy. That's also not rooted in anything in church teaching. Like there's nowhere in church teaching, any official documents, that those criteria are mentioned. And also nowhere in church teaching does it say that it is a sin to say no thanks to a husband's initiation of lovemaking. So that was a big eye opener for me. And just to realize how many women are affected by this. It's a lot. And so that's the specifically like traditional Catholic version of it, but it also kind of eeps into the Catholic world by way of evangelical circles and these other Protestant communities where they teach about it's a woman's duty to her husband. And, kind of like we get influenced by that as well sometimes in church circles, in Catholic circles, kind of what the Protestants are up to, talking about over there. So thankfully, there's a Protestant woman, a local Christian woman, Gregoire, who has done a lot to oppose and debunk this obligation sex mentality. To anybody listening, I encourage you to Google the obligation sex blog series on her Bare Marriage website. She breaks down, how harmful this is, what it is. And then, I have a podcast episode on this as well. There's other resources out there, like debunking this because it's not true, but it is super harmful. It is really harmful to women because if you are under this amount of moral pressure, like you have to have sex with your husband when he asks, or else you're bad, you're sinful, you're a bad wife, you're failing. So pressure kills pleasure. Like how can you enjoy lovemaking? And how can you fulfill what the church actually teaches, which is that we're called to be a free gift of self, right? You have to have the freedom to give yourself and to reserve that gift of sexual embrace when you're genuinely just not feeling it. Maybe there's resentment from an unhealed argument where you need to do more repair first, or you feel used, or you feel exhausted and burnt out. Like all that needs care. And the church is all about husbands showing care and reverence to their wives. In fact, a quote from church teaching that I pull out a lot for this type of discussion comes straight from Humanae Vitae, a magisterial authoritative document, said that a danger of if contraception were to become accepted, and he's writing this in 1968, where he's like, the world hadn't quite gone whole hog with embracing contraception at that point. But he said, it's, if that were to really, become accepted, my goodness, then husbands might stop viewing their wives as someone to surround with care and affection, reverencing her emotional and physical equilibrium, but might see her as an object for his own use and gratification. And that's exactly what happens. That same dynamic is what happens in an obligation sex dynamic in marriage. Even if the husband's well-meaning and sincere, but his wife, and he might not be the one saying, well, you have to. He might just be oblivious or, sincere, but whatever, doesn't realize it. But she is thinking there's all this pressure on her. And it kind of trains him to always expect gratification and not to have to really check in, like, how is my wife doing? What would serve her best right now? How can I love and support her best and show care for her? Oh, maybe lovemaking isn't really, the best for her well-being right now. Let's build up to it later. But right now, how can I support her? That's really more the attitude that the church is pointing to. So that is a biggie. And I'm really glad you mentioned that first, as far as misconceptions Catholic women have about sex. That it's an obligation. I think another misconception Catholic women have about sex is that it's for the husband in marriage.
Really? Wow.
That is
Okay.
just like that, yeah, like, well, he needs it, so I need to do this for him. And
Mm,
that's also completely not anywhere in church teaching. That's not what God
that sounds so
reveals.
sad to me. That really saddens me to think that some women are believing that, not knowing otherwise.
Me too. It makes me sad too. That like fuels my passion to want to help women in this because the truth is in the church documents on sexuality, it's always seen as this equal thing. When the church says that the actions in marriage by which spouses give themselves to one another in the marital embrace are noble and worthy and enrich the spouses with gratitude, it doesn't say it's just good for the husband. This is a good thing for the husband, so the wife better do it for him. No, it's supposed to be for the wife too. It's supposed to be
Yeah.
enriching for the wife and good for the wife also, and nourishing and upbuilding for her also. So yeah, I think that's really important. If you have this assumption and expectation that sex and marriage should be good for me as the wife, like God wants that for me. He wants me to enjoy it and have pleasure in sex. That's a good thing. And it's okay for me. I'm not a bad woman if I want to enjoy sex and marriage. Then, like, that's really important to kind of pave the way to actually learning what is involved with enjoying sex and marriage, and giving yourself permission to. Because I think another misconception that sort of comes from the culture, but that women bring to their Catholic marriages is that only bad women like sex. Like the kind of woman who really likes sex, she's a naughty woman, right? Like think about it when you think about like, what women are super sexy, prostitutes maybe, like femme fatales in movies, right? Who vamp guys so they can kill them or be spy, tools for the spy network or whatever.
Mm,
They're the bad guys, the bad gals. But I like to kind of paint a picture of a woman who can integrate being a good woman, a woman who's on her way to heaven, on her way to becoming a saint, being the fullest version, the holiest, most whole version of herself and her whole self, can connect all those parts so she could be motherly and also sexy. I like to envision, like, imagine like a mature, middle-aged Italian woman who's cooking the pasta and sipping a glass of wine, maybe listening to some music. Her husband comes by, puts his hand around her waist. She can snuggle up to him. She's going to feed her family all the pasta. And then that night, she and her husband are going to make sweet love and it'll be amazing. Okay. She is fully owning her femininity and her sexuality and is a good holy woman. I think that is more in line with what the church's teachings point to. But we have, it's this kind of virgin whore dichotomy in our cultural consciousness that like there's the whore, bad woman associated
mm,
with sex, and then a very good woman like the Virgin Mary, very motherly and pure and having nothing to do with sexuality. And I love the Virgin. I love Mary, and she is a virgin, but she's also fully feminine, and she fully opened herself up to and received the Holy Spirit in a very intimate embrace that was spousal and fruitful. There is a sexiness and a sexuality, if I dare say it, to Mary integrating her femininity and making it fruitful and being a spouse as well, that I think we don't reflect on that much.
mhm.
So that's another misconception. And there are a lot more too. There are a lot more misconceptions. I think another one that is really harmful for a lot of women is this assumption that sex should be like what we see in the movies and pick up from popular culture, which all of
Yeah.
that is scripted for the male gaze and
Mhm.
from the male viewpoint. And so these are visions of like male focused sexuality in which is very intense and very fast. So we
Yeah.
kind of get this idea like when a real life woman is making love with her real life husband in a real life marriage, like a Catholic marriage, and she's not feeling any pleasure in a 5 or 10 minute encounter, then she's like, oh, something's wrong with me. I'm broken. I must be low libido. It just doesn't work
Mm,
for me. Not realizing the way God designed us as women is that we have a long, slow buildup that we need to engage with the arousal curve that God endowed women with. So we need like a
Mhm.
20, 30, 40, 60-minute type of sex session with our husbands in order to feel that pleasure. And like, what movies show that? What, pop culture references show a long, sweet, slow build up? Like, that doesn't make quick storytelling
Yeah.
in movies. So that's a misconception, is like it should be fast.
Mhm.
And that's not how God made women. Or another misconception would be like, well, I'm not feeling pleasure in penetration. There must be something wrong with me. Not realizing the organ God designed us women, that he gave us just for sexual pleasure, is usually not engaged. It's usually not stimulated just with penetration. We need other kinds of foreplay to stimulate that particular organ.
I think I heard you say once of like, if our no in sex is not honored, then it's almost like our yes can feel like meaningless when we do give our yes to the marital embrace, so that we should feel okay to decline for various reasons, and that hopefully that will also mean that our yes is more honored. And I like what you said too about kind of, I don't know, struggling with one version of us that is the holy woman on the path to sainthood, and the other version that is this sexy, naughty woman. And I definitely think of like the whole person. And I remember hearing once that, maybe you can confirm or deny this, that I think there was one time in church history that you were to not have sex like the night before Holy Communion because sex was seen as carnal, and that, I guess, that has gone away, because I know there's definitely been times
Mhm.
I got lucky the night before mass, and
Yeah,
then
that's not a moral teaching now, but
yeah,
it
and then
was.
I remember, like, I am the full person. I am
Mhm.
the wife and the mother and the Catholic, and it's all one in my soul. And I don't need to feel shame. Oh my gosh, last night, but here I am
Yeah,
in church
you
with
don't
my
need to do the
veil
walk of
on.
shame up the communion, on the way up to receive communion if you had sex the night before.
Yeah, yeah, here I am with my veil on. Oh, like, no one knows.
Yeah,
But
it's
yeah, we are
totally
the
fine.
whole person.
Yeah, and you're right. That was Catholic practice. Like in the Middle Ages, you weren't supposed to have sex during Lent or on any Friday or on feast days or on fast days. That, I mean, what did that leave you, like Tuesday and Thursday? I don't know what was left after all that. Um, and yeah, and married clergy were not to have sex before celebrating mass, back when there
Mm,
were married clergy, or like married deacons who would be up at the altar. Yeah, but that is not in effect anymore. So, and I
mhm.
think that's really interesting. Like, if we're going to go back and look back at medieval Catholic practices around sexuality before our whole theology and understanding of it developed as it has in the last 100 years. But if we're going to go look to before then for guidance, and then say like obligation sex, because some medieval saints talked about obligation sex, why aren't we also talking about no sex in Lent and no sex on Fridays? And, like we just, I don't know. It seems kind of selective to me that
Mm.
in these certain traditionalist circles, we're just bringing back the practices that favor the guys in the stereotype where the husband is the higher spontaneous libido spouse. And that's another misconception that does affect a lot of women, is like, well, my husband's supposed to want it all the time, but I'm the one who's more interested. Is there something wrong with me? No, there's nothing wrong with you. That's also normal. Some studies show that it's maybe about 20% of marriages where the wife is the higher spontaneous libido spouse. And that's totally fine. That's within the range of normal.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
gift for your marriage. Husbands can have a lot of different reasons for not spontaneously thinking about sex as often as their wife might spontaneously think about desiring to have it. But yeah, totally workable, and just give thanks to God for that gift, because it's for your marriage. It's a strength for your marriage that he gave you the desire.
Totally. There are variations of normal. 1 in 5 marriages, you said. The
Yeah.
wives with the higher
And that's just one
libido.
tiny little study. Other studies that measure desire for sex among college age young men and women who are single find that it's actually more equal. So I think there's something that happens with socialization and cultural attitudes and expectations along the way
Interesting.
that kind of helps, that makes women think it's not okay for me, like what we talked about before, to be a good woman, then I shouldn't really desire sex. So then you don't learn to integrate those desires in an appropriate way. That's my private theory. That's, I don't know.
Interesting
Yeah.
theory. Yeah. So, this is a pro-life, pro-NFP podcast, dare I say pro-birth. And so I'd love to get your opinion on how does body literacy, fertility awareness reinforce the truth in marriage of the respect for the body and the gift of life?
Yeah, so that's so great. Like, let's look for points of connection between a healthy, holy vision of sex in marriage, and specifically, I'm talking about Catholic marriage, and being pro life and fertility awareness and body literacy. And I think the big linchpin connecting it all is the belief in the dignity of the person, the
Mm,
dignity and respect for the human person. Persons, men, women, babies, persons are beings to be loved and respected and not objects to be used or discarded. That you can say that that is true about a baby in the womb or about a woman in marriage or outside of marriage, right? That a person is to be loved and not used. That's what I would say there. That when we really see this deep respect for the dignity of each other as spouses in marriage, that we have this understanding that our sexuality is about so much more than just our own personal gratification, that it has a holy and noble purpose to be the body language that's the covenantal renewal of our marriage vows. And that has these twin dual ends or goals or purposes of being both unitive and procreative, then we're not going to be surprised or shocked or horrified if having sex leads to babies. Now, that's not an unexpected outcome that has to be dealt with an abortion. And we're seeing sex as just something for recreation, something for personal gratification and use. And then when a baby comes along, you're like, wait, no, I wasn't looking for babies. Get that baby away. Right. That it's a real understanding of the dignity of the person and of the body as sacred, that the
mhm.
body matters and what we do with our bodies matter. Our body, whether we're in the womb or, 48 years old, as some of us might be, so much more than just a hunk of stuff, a clump of cells, that there is a whole human person there that has a spiritual nature as well. And that's integrated, spiritual and physical are integrated into the human person. And so those spiritual values and the emotional values are so important. Yeah. I think that really helps. I will say that it is so good in marriage to have an understanding of body literacy and understand how, fertility awareness and how that works. Um, that, yeah, when a couple is contracepting in marriage, the they can see sex in a diminished way, right? Because they're blocking that procreative end. And then what the church says in Humanae Vitae is unwittingly, without intending to, they're also harming the unitive end of sexuality. So the bonding in babies, that's the unitive and procreative ends of sexuality that Humanae Vitae speaks about. And by the way, just side note, like if you have not read, anybody listening, if you have not read Humanae Vitae, do it today. Do it this week. Just look it up online. Humanae Vitae, 1968, written by Pope Paul VI, Saint Pope Paul VI. It's short. You can read it, I would say, in about half an hour or less if you're an average reader. And it's so full of truth, beauty, and goodness. It will really help you understand the true meaning of sex and of the body, so much more. Help you understand like why we're in the problems that we're in today in our culture. But yeah, that it can keep you from cheapening and coarsening your understanding of sex in marriage, keep you from harming and diminishing the unitive end, which is what Humanae Vitae says happens. If a couple tries to separate these two ends, the unitive and procreative, and like the procreative end of marriage by contracepting and thinking, well, we're just going to pursue the unitive end. We just want the bonding. Then they actually are harming their bonding. It's not a full union of persons. There's this overlay. There's this, on the language of the body, which should be a language of total self-gift, giving and receiving each other mutually. You're saying, I give my whole self to you, except I hold back and reserve my fertility, my ability to be a mother or father. And that's a really big part of your masculinity and femininity. Whereas if you just avoid sex during your fertile phase, you're still respecting the overall structure of that potential fertility. And when you do come together in lovemaking, it's fully unitive. You're not blocking any of that unity with chemical or behavioral or mechanical means there. So that is really important and good. But again, I am going to say that just because a Catholic couple is using NFP and not contracepting in their marriage, that's not enough to guarantee that their love life in marriage is going to be great. You also need emotional connection. You also need an understanding of how female sexuality works. You also need really good communication, positive assumptions and attitudes about sexuality, right? So plenty of work to do there. But yeah, I think that this is so good, Melanie, that you're doing this, pointing out how nurturing a culture of life and having a pro-life attitude intersects with all these different aspects of the rest of our life as well. And that's so true, especially in sexuality.
Yeah, my hope is that in spreading the good news, the gospel of body literacy, that there will be this just natural law, this natural reasoning that people will come to understand the dignity in their own bodies, the power in the gift of their fertility, and then wanting to be very particular on who they share that gift with, and then seeing their own dignity and then the dignity and the preborn. So I have this, radical hope that more women will come to this realization and coming to realize the beauty in themselves and the way how their bodies were designed, et cetera, et cetera.
That's so true and good and worthy and beautiful. And that's the thing. We women have incredible dignity, incredible worth. The devil hates that. That's why he's always attacking women and children. And he hates God's plan for, exalting women and for bringing new life in this way. But yeah, getting women to doubt their worth, getting women to feel less than or too much or broken or inadequate. The devil just loves to get those thoughts spinning in us. And that only serves him. Sometimes we think with this false humility, oh, well, I'm just being so humble because I know I'm not good enough, or, I know I'm not really that worthy. That is not God's voice at work. God says, you are my beloved daughter. You have an incredible dignity and purpose and eternal worth. You are precious to me. You are my princess. You're my beloved. And so God's voice is the voice of encouragement and of affirming your dignity. And in fact, St. John Paul II writes in his 1988 letter on the dignity and vocation of women, another beautiful church document. I would like you all to just stop everything and go read that beautiful church document, though it's a little longer. But in it, he says, when the Blessed Virgin Mary, when Mary proclaims to God that the Lord has done great things for me and holy is his name, of course, she's giving praise and thanks to God that she has been chosen to be mother of the Messiah, mother of the Savior. But also, John Paul II says, it's also equally true that she is giving thanks and praise to God for the precious gift of her femininity, that she has been made a woman. And every woman can say that Magnificat to God with Mary. The Lord has done great things for me in creating me to be a woman. This is a great thing. I just want that to sink in for every woman to really know that. It is a really great thing to be a woman. There's incredible dignity and worth. So yeah, I think this is great, Melanie, that you are helping spread that message that your body is worthy, your fertility is a gift, you can steward it and learn about it, and it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. I'm definitely receiving that message from the Blessed Mother that the Lord has done great things for me and that it's a blessing to be a woman, not a curse.
Not a curse, because that's the language we use, right? Like my period, it's a curse. And yeah, like
From the
kind of,
fall,
right.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah. See, it's problematic to be a woman, but it's a really good thing. My friend Mary Bruno, who also would be great for your podcast, I was on her podcast and then she said, "Can I send you something?" And I'm like, "Okay." She's like, "Give me your address." So I did. And then weeks later, I got this giant Blessed Virgin Mary cup, which I'd always been making fun of these kind of cups before, but now I absolutely love it and I won't go anywhere without it. And I like get anxious when I'm far from it. I'm like, I love it so much.
Nice. That's a cute cup. I like that. All
Okay,
right.
let's
So, okay. I've heard it said before that couples that practice NFP, that there's just this wonderful sex life with the season of fasting when you're abstaining, and then the
on the
season of
honeymoon effect, right?
feasting. Yeah. And yeah, that couples that do practice NFP, I guess that they can have better, healthier lives. And so I'm just curious if you know that couples that do practice NFP, if you've seen that there is an overall better health of the couple's relationship and sex life.
Well, I will say that one of the benefits that should be there in your practice of NFP in your marriage is communicating with each other about your sex life and about your intentions so that you're on the same page, that it sort of naturally prompts that communication on a regular basis. And that doesn't mean that it's going to happen. And so you still need to work on your human level skills of growing in your communication skills and growing in your respect and understanding of each other, right? You know, maybe you're in different places and maybe the wife or the husband wants to try for another baby or wants to have sex during the fertile period and is okay with the baby, resulting from that. Whereas the other one is like more cautious or doesn't think it's a good time. So in that case, I recommend that the couple pray together that if it's God's will for them to have a baby, to invite a baby into their family now, to give them both that desire. And if it's his desire, if it's God's will for them not to not to welcome a new baby into their family this time, to give them both a sense of contentment and peace, that can really help you get on the same page. And then so good to build spiritual intimacy by praying with each other as a couple, which it's like spiritual super glue for your marriage. If you can pray one-on-one with each other, right? Like you want that, right?
God, spiritual super glue.
Yes. But I will say in practice, I've worked with plenty of women who are doing the right thing and they and their husband are using NFP in their marriage, and there's still a lot of struggle around sex because there's differing desires, or maybe the wife is like, yay, I get a break from sex during the fertile period, and then in phase 3 when it's a green light again for sex, I've got, then she's like, there's these expectations and I got to perform and I got to show up for my husband because he's been really, waiting and whatnot. And there are solutions for these problems. And the solutions usually look like, let's examine your assumptions. Are you thinking like he needs sex and you owe it to him? That's an obligation mindset that sneakily worked its way into your practice of natural family planning. Let's root it out there. It's not the natural family planning itself. It's like what you're overlaying onto it on there. So that can be a factor. And also how God made our lovely feminine bodies to work. Often we experience more desire for sex during phase 2 when we're fertile, because our body's like, hey, it's so great making babies. You should go have some sex and have some babies right now. And so
It's
you
time.
get this burst of energy and maybe a burst of experiencing, desire for sex. And Ellen Holloway, who you've had on your podcast, she is very adamant at saying, no, it's not your libido increasing during phase 2. It's that you have more energy, and energy is the necessary foundation for libido. But either way, it's still can lead to some frustration if you're abstaining during that time. And then phase 3 comes around and it's like open season for sex in your marriage. and that energy went away and you're exhausted and you're like, oh no, like, oh, sex, it exists? Why would I want to do that? And so what I recommend for that is that you steward your energy. You harness all that excitement and, friskiness of your phase 2 energy, and you prepare the phase 3 you with some practical things so that you can save some energy for her for phase 3 version of yourself. Right. So you can batch cook some meals, do extra cleaning. If you're work extra on your projects and responsibilities so that in phase 3, you can just pull the meals out of the freezer. You don't have to hustle so hard to get your deliverables done for work because you pre-did a lot of them with all that extra creativity and energy you had in phase 2, right? Like you can rest a bit and relax. And that's really key to experiencing desire and pleasure in lovemaking, is having that foundation of energy, rest, and relaxation. So it's like cycle syncing your energy and responsibilities so that you can even it out a bit and then really enjoy your phase 3 lovemaking. And the fertility awareness, the body literacy, like that, then you understand your body. It's so great to know. Like for myself, Melanie, like I learned early on in my 20s because of cycle charting that I need less sleep during phase 2. I get more ideas. I'm more productive. I feel more like inspiration. Like I'll think, oh, like I'll get this whole idea for a project I could do or create or, an initiative or something. And I'll feel like I could do anything. Let's go do it kind of energy. Cause also your body wants to go do it. And it's beautiful. That's such a gift. And then I've also learned like, okay, but let's not take on, let's not bite off more than we can chew with the projects during that time, because a week or two later, it's gonna taper off and, let's make it manageable. And anyway, so those are some hacks that you can use to work with your hormonal energy fluctuations to really help you as a woman thrive more. Yeah.
I love that idea so much. I feel like it's become more popular to think of cycle syncing with your workouts or your workloads, but I've never thought of it to sync for your sex life too. So I'm definitely gonna keep some of those ideas in my back pocket and use them
Right?
in
Like
my own
maybe
life.
phase 2 you does the shopping for some nice lingerie or nighties or whatnot, and like maybe plans out a special date night that you and your husband could have, like, like what you're going to do for your, relaxing or fun together. And then like how you would transition into lovemaking. Like you can literally, like you write a menu or like write in your planner, your to-do list for that. Like you could plan it out because maybe then you're like thinking about sex more anyway, so put that thought to good use. And then later in phase 3, pull that plan out, or like the lingerie order appears and you're like, oh yeah, okay, and it's like you've laid the groundwork for yourself.
Nice. I really love that idea. So, Sarah, from your 15 plus years in Catholic marriage ministry, what are some practical patterns you've seen in marriages that seem to be thriving compared to others that may be struggling?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that emotional connection is the secret sauce. It's learning how to connect with each other at the level of your personal feelings, to be able to talk about them, to be able to prioritize time with each other, which is precious and is hard. And no one else is going to do that. Like the world is not going to be like, hey, you two, you should really take 20 minutes just to talk with each other each day. You should really take an hour or two each week to really have some quality time. And you two should go away for a weekend a year or something. Like no one else outside is going to be saying you should do that, but you should. You absolutely should. You need to rip your eyeballs off of your phones and like really look at each other at least once a day, talk with each other, and about something that's more deep and personal. Those are the kinds of skills that help you stick with each other and build a marriage, a marital friendship that has a strong emotional connection. And also working in lots of affirmation and gratitude. That's really key to marriages that thrive. Those are marriages where they don't have a lot of their communication be about criticism or why didn't you do this? How you did that wrong? How come you did it that way? like learning how to root out the criticism, just like you're pulling out weeds out of your garden, and then add in lots of praise, affirmation, gratitude, just like you're planting the roses and the petunias and the, foxgloves or whatever you want to plant in your garden, nourishing that, making it thrive. That is really key. And then another key to marriages that thrive compared to those that struggle is knowing what to do after a conflict. You're going to have conflict. You're
Yeah,
two
yeah,
different human beings.
yeah,
You're not
yeah.
going to agree about everything. You're going to end up
Yeah.
hurting each other.
It would
That's
be
just
weird
natural.
if you did not have conflict.
Right. It would be weird if you did not have conflict. This is
Like
so
something is
normal.
not right. Something is being bundled up and bubbling up on the inside.
Yeah, you're probably stuffing it, or yeah, that's not healthy either. So you're going to have conflict. What do you do afterwards? The couples that thrive are the couples that know how to repair well after a conflict. They
Mm.
know how to say, I am so sorry. I wish I wouldn't have said it that way. I wish, like, can I try doing that over? Will you forgive me? I love you. Let's do better going forward. And even if you're the one who didn't do the main wrong thing, find something you can apologize for to get this whole apology spiral going and get this forgiveness and repair cycle going. So that is really important. And along those same lines, the couples that thrive have learned how to grow in humility.
Mm.
Not thinking like, I'm the best person in this marriage here. My way is the best. My method of loading the dishwasher is the best. So get with the program. It's having the humility to be like, to accept the other's influence and to say, like, you know what? You have a lot of strengths that I don't have. And I'm so thankful for you. And there are ways I could grow, like having that growth mindset towards your own personal self in your marriage. That's really key as well. Yeah, I
Mm.
think those are the biggies.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then learning to pray together as well. That's really huge.
Yeah, so you said prayer is the spiritual super glue, and learning to communicate well emotionally is the secret sauce. So we have our spiritual super glue and our secret sauce.
That's right. If people listening, if women, men listening are interested in learning more, my husband and I developed a free online marriage workshop called The Little Way of Marriage. And so you just go to littlewayofmarriage.com and sign up, and then you'll get these teachings, and we model it in our videos, and there's worksheets that go with it. But yeah, we use examples from Saint Therese of Lisieux and from her saintly parents, Saints Louis and Zélie Martin, to kind of illustrate these very important human skills of affirmation and gratitude and, making little rituals of connection in your day. And then also, yeah, we model a method of couple prayer that really helps couples feel connected.
Nice. Yeah, and I just heard some of your French come out. I know you are a French speaker.
Yeah.
I'm on a 260 plus day streak on Duolingo for French.
Oh, très bien. Wow, very
Je
good.
comprends un peu français, so I hope to be fluent eventually.
So great. I'm actually I love France. I did a study abroad year in France in my college years, and I've gone back lots of times. And I'm actually going to be leading a pilgrimage to France in
Please.
May of 2026. So I'd love to invite you and anybody listening, if you want to consider, we're going to go check out pilgrimage sites related to Saint Joan of Arc, Saint Therese, Saint Zélie Martin, and we're going to go to Lourdes, and there's going to be this whole healing experience that is going to be like the capstone of it. It'll be a women's dignity and healing women's pilgrimage. I'm really excited. I'm in the process of finalizing the plans right now. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, well, I will definitely keep an eye out on your email list once that is, I guess you haven't publicized that yet. No?
It's not official yet, but we're going to put the registration out, I think, within a week or two. Yeah,
That
probably
sounds
by the time this airs.
amazing. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I've only been to Lourdes, France, and that's all I've explored really in France. So, wow, I'd love, I don't make the connection that St. Joan of Arc was also in France. I
Yeah,
don't think about that.
she sure was. Yeah, I'm so excited to go to the places associated with her. When I mentioned it's our 25th wedding anniversary, and that we celebrated in May. And what my husband Nathan and I did is sort of spontaneously, we just took our backpacks and hopped on a plane and went to France for a week. My husband's parents watched our kids for us, and they told us like 3 weeks ahead of time, we're going to be in town anyway, visiting you guys. Would you like to go somewhere? You could go to Spokane or Paris. And we're like, oh, well, Spokane now. Let's just check it out. Well, we went to Gonzaga, and so we did live in Spokane, but we decided to go for Paris instead of Spokane, and got the cheapest tickets we could get, and the tickets didn't even have a luggage allowance, so we just packed everything for a week in our little carry-on backpacks, and we felt
Nice.
like free as kids, like free as birds. It was the most fun thing we did. So
Wow, with 3 weeks notice, took off to
yeah.
France. Wow, how fun. What a beautiful example of marriage, that your love and like your childlike love and sense of adventure doesn't have to die as time
Oh,
goes on.
yeah. And God ministered to our hearts because, we've been married 25 years. We were thinking
Uh-huh.
about the next 25 years, and there are going to be a lot of
Wow.
changes. Our kids are going to grow up and move out. And so we were really able to reflect and pray and talk about, what do we want? What kind of a vision of a life do we want for thriving in the next seasons ahead? And the little backpacks were our inspiration. We're like, we love this. We love traveling light. Let's travel light through life, and let's just, like have that kind of attitude
Mm,
where we can just simplify, give away as much of our stuff as we can, be
leave our
free, be
burdens.
flexible, declutter. I mean, I love decluttering anyway. So that was like, yay, let's do that. But also like just be ready spiritually, kind of to be pilgrims in that way.
I love that. What a beautiful example. So we've spoken very broadly, well, about different topics about what it could look like for Catholic women to have good sex lives. And I'm curious now on what do you think needs to be healed or embraced for a Catholic woman to have a good sex life? The first thing that's coming to mind for me, because I've heard you speak about it, is healing pornography. But yeah, can you touch on that of what needs to be healed or embraced for us Catholic women to have good sex lives?
Yeah, well, that word is so evocative. And just to talk about healing, so many women have past sexual abuse or regrets from past sexual experiences. So that needs to be healed. And to, seek the appropriate care for that, whether that care is some therapy, some healing prayer, to do some journaling and adoration, confession, but then also some journaling where you really forgive yourself if it was choices that you made that you regret. But there's always these deeper layers of that healing that we can access, that are available if we seek them. So to have the courage to seek and to ask with a trusting, receptive heart for that healing. And then, yes, healing from maybe husband's pornography use. And so the betrayal trauma that comes from that, it's a specific type of pain, a specific type of trauma when a husband is viewing pornography. It is infidelity. It is betrayal. And there is care for that. Like, the really heartbreaking thing is that pornography is so common. It's just everywhere. 1/3 of the internet is used for pornography. Pornography earns more money than all major league sports combined. It's just huge. It's just chewing up marriages, chewing up souls, chewing up and spitting out women's bodies, children's bodies. It's so heartbreaking. It's so
It's an
evil and destructive.
industry. It's an evil industry.
It's so evil. Okay, so that's the bad news, is that it's everywhere and it's big. And if you're listening, you probably know someone who's used it, or, the people around you. Like, that is what creeps me out too. Like, our doctors, our priests, our government leaders, a big amount of them are probably using porn daily right now, or are addicted to it. Okay, so that goes to say, like, probably a lot of the husbands are using or have used porn. So that's the bad news. But the good news is that, thankfully, because it's such a big problem and so common, there are a lot of organizations and a lot of like ministries that have been created to help provide care for that. So first of all, I have a whole episode on my podcast, my My Delight podcast, 10 resources for getting the porn out, healing betrayal trauma, and rebuilding authentic intimacy. And I have a whole list of the porn recovery resources and organizations like Pure Desires or Sexaholics Anonymous, or work with a certified sexual addiction therapist. Usually for a husband, a boyfriend, a fiance, or a wife, women are using porn in increasing numbers also. Usually for them to get sober from porn, they need some sort of support to work with some sort of program or specific therapist to get the accountability and support to get off of it and sober from it. So find that help. It could be free, like Sexaholics Anonymous is a free 12-step support group, just like Alcoholics Anonymous. And there's usually meetings available in your area or online at any time around the world. But then you could pay also, or somewhere in between, like a low cost option. Like Matt Fradd has his Strive program. That's a Catholic program that can be a good supplement and can be really helpful as well. But then also healing for the betrayal trauma programs like Hope's Garden or Bloom for Women or Bloom for Catholic Women, or coaching with Catholic coach Casey Allison. She has her comeawake.org website. You can find her there. She does incredible work helping women recover from betrayal trauma. So that is really important healing that needs to happen. But then also healing from purity culture attitudes, from assumptions that we've talked about earlier in this podcast, like thinking that sex is just for husbands, that's a bad thing, that my pleasure doesn't even really matter, it's just an afterthought, is irrelevant. Maybe it's healing, speaking of healing, maybe it's healing from pain during intercourse. And so the healing needs to be some pelvic floor
Physical
therapy
healing.
or some deeper, part of pain during intercourse usually is there's a physical component from the involuntary the contractions of the vaginal wall muscles, but also there's also a mental component as well. So to find some sort of support and guidance to help you retrain your brain in its response to the idea of having sex, that can really help with the pain during intercourse as well. In fact, Ellen Holloway, who you had on your podcast previously, she has a whole pain during intercourse course to help women specifically with that. Yeah. So those are some different common types of healing that are usually needed. But I would say equally, like healing from feeling used in an obligation sex dynamic that may have been the operating mode in a woman's marriage.
Yeah. One of the things I think needs to be embraced by women is learning our anatomy, encouraging our husbands to also learn the female anatomy. I fear that may be a barrier that women are facing from enjoying intimacy fully. I always tell my engaged, married to be friends, I'm like, he needs to find your clitoris.
Know that it exists, figure out where it is. Not that you should do like a hands-on exploration when you're engaged, but you can absolutely, like, that would be inappropriate. Let's just say that. Like,
Yes, totally.
I will just say for the record, if you're wondering, where's the line? We're engaged, we're not married yet, or, we're dating and really serious. Where's the line for physical intimacy that's, affectionate, but not impure for our situation? And that line is your private parts. You should not be touching each other's private parts. You should not have hands on anything that your underwear covers. So, think of a bikini and everything that covers. No hands on breasts or, your pelvic vaginal area or on his genitals as well. Hands off the genitals and erogenous zones. So don't do that. But yeah, you can make out and, be affectionate and touch. And I think that's really important too, to take the edge off of the purity culture, fear around sexuality.
Yeah.
Because I've had women show up in my delight who are married and haven't been able to consummate yet because they were so rigidly pure during their engagement. They hardly even kissed, or just, very tiny little kisses that, like, it's a too big of a leap to cross now. They're like already in the habit. But I would, let's see, we were talking about learning about a woman's body. Yes. So obviously we're not going to like hands-on go explore together as engaged bride and husband and groom to be, but you can absolutely look at diagrams. This is medical scientific knowledge. Don't be afraid of that. We should not be afraid of this true, helpful information. And so it's safe. I just want to encourage people, it's safe. You can look online, look up the clitoris, and you can find these great anatomical drawings, from like the Mayo Clinic or Cleveland Clinic or any of these sort of normal looking sites. If you see a site that looks like if you click on it, it's going to show you an actual photograph of a real woman and her clitoris, don't click that. No, that's not appropriate. But drawings are fine, and you should absolutely be doing that. And understand that is where the 8,000 nerve endings are that God designed to give to women for their sexual pleasure. They're in the clitoris. They're not inside the vagina. Don't be thinking that penetrative intercourse, that is what's going to bring the wife pleasure. Be talking about this. Be talking as an engaged couple about your expectation, about your understanding that like sex should take at least I would say an hour. Let's just block out an hour per session, okay? With the transition, the relaxing, unwind, cuddling, foreplay, that all this, let's give it, we give an hour for mass on Sunday for a full communion with God, right? Because it's an important relationship to renew. And same thing with lovemaking. Let's assume and just be talking about like this is an hour-long activity. Usually you can adjust a bit, right? Like we have short daily masses that are like a half hour, to use the math analogy. But in general, I think it's so important for women to understand how God designed their bodies, to understand really like what are all these details of female anatomy in the vulvar vaginal area. Understand your inner lips, outer lips, hymen, all of that is so important. And just give, like we were talking about earlier, give praise and thanks to God, for you are fearfully and wonderfully made. It's a good thing to be a woman. And you're private, like every part of you is good. And when God created man, he not only said like it's good, like he said for the plants and the trees and the animals and the sun and moon, in the book of Genesis, he said all that is good after each day of creation. But after he created man and woman, he said it is very good. That applies to you as a woman. That applies to your body. That even applies to your genital area. It is very good. Don't be afraid. Don't be ashamed. Don't be prudish and squeamish and think like, oh, it would be impure of me to look at diagrams of female anatomy, while I'm engaged or dating or even just single and not dating. Like, no, this is totally appropriate. Yeah, I would say even for consecrated women, it is important to understand your female anatomy and understand what is healthy and normal. And Melanie, it's so great that you are promoting fertility awareness, because as we chart and learn to understand our cycles, then we can understand like what type of mucus and discharge is normal, and then what is a sign of an infection, or what's a sign that our hormones are off and we might need to get our thyroid checked, or might need to see if our adrenals and cortisol function is messing things up. Like all that is really important.
I really like the parallel you painted of a full hour or half hour for the communion within the Mass, and the idea of setting aside half hour, an hour for full communion with our spouse. I really like that parallel. And what you mentioned too about like embracing, I don't know, can I say your sexuality, like when you're engaged or when you're dating? I feel like in Europe, it's so common to see public displays of affection. Like it is not odd walking in the park and people are kissing. Whereas I feel like in the US, we're almost like so stunned when you see public displays of affection. Just a few weeks ago, I had come back from a pro-life mission trip, and my husband seemed hesitant to kiss me upon my arrival in the airport. And I had to communicate with him like, hey, I want you to kiss me. Like, I want that public display of affection. But I remember the first time I saw that in European culture, I was studying abroad in the Catholic Worldview Fellowship program in Rome, and I saw a couple and they were kissing in the park, and I was just so like scandalized in the moment. I told my priest who was walking with us, like I said something that just I was just so shocked, and he was like, maybe they're engaged. Like he just water off his bag. He wasn't bothered by it, but I was just so like shaken in the moment. But
Yeah, well, we have this Puritan background in American culture that really has lingering effects. It's such an interesting mix that we have like porn culture in, so prevalent, but also Puritan background from hundreds of years ago does still, affect these types of attitudes. So that's a great observation there. Yeah.
interesting connection. So then how in your coaching do you encourage women to embrace our desires, embrace pleasure, embrace our sexuality while also staying grounded in church teaching? I know you mentioned earlier of like it's not one or the other of the Virgin Mary and the naughty girl, but how do we then balance the both? How do we embrace this part of being a Catholic woman?
Yeah, I think this comes down to authentic self care, which is caring for your soul and your body and knowing your worth and being confident. So, to care for your body, I think it can be very sensual, to notice like, I need a shower right now. Like I'm feeling a little like my hair's feeling a little grubby, or like I'm all stressed and tense. I'm going to take a warm bath or, get a massage.
Mm,
Like to lean into how can you incorporate appropriate touch into your daily life, right? Like you talked about with PDAs, but also like in your family with your friends. Can you and your friends like touch each other's arms or, without it being weird? Or can you see your nieces and nephews and like, play with them in a hands-on way? Like these are ways we can add in more touch, but also like how you dress yourself. Like you can dress yourself in a way that like you can feel fun and flirty without being, objectifying yourself, also without being like prudish. I am not here to say we should all be wearing prairie dresses that go up to your neck and with the ruffles down at the wrist and whatnot. But that is a way that you can really honor your femininity and, wherever you are in your season of life and just like, no, your body matters. Right. Yeah. I think lots of these different types of self care are going to be a really good foundation for whatever vocation the Lord may call you to know your nourishment, your rest, your exercise, your prayer life, your emotional connections and relationships. It is worth it. You are worth it to care for you in all these areas. I know for me, my hour of adoration a week that I strive for and don't always get, like I just soak it up when I do make it happen. That is a huge piece of my authentic self-care for my whole person. I just can bathe in the peace and love and warmth of Jesus' presence and like feel his love for me, feel his acceptance of me, however I'm showing up that day. And all that. So I'm caring for your soul, for your body, for your heart, for your mind. Like, do you need to read more? Do you need to pull away from your phone and limit your screen time so that you can be more of a whole woman and more present to your life? All these are ways that you can be grounding yourself and then educating yourself. Learn about female sexuality. It's okay. It's okay. You can do that. There are some secular books out there and also just learning more about purity culture. Maybe there's some books also on like recovering from purity culture. I invite women to listen to my podcast. I have several episodes on what newlywed women should know. That's okay for you to listen to and think about and start learning about as a single or a dating or, engaged woman. That just and also, Melanie, I think you have a real strength for this. You were sharing before we started recording that in your friend group, you're the one who's more, I hope this is okay to share that.
Yeah,
You said
yeah.
you're the one who's more likely to bring up the topic of sex. And that's so important. We need to make our spaces in our Catholic world, in our Catholic social landscape among women, we need to make those places safe for conversations about sex to be normal. Because I have had several women in my course tell me it was because my sister-in-law or my friend or my mom's group friend mentioned that she had found healing from pelvic floor therapy for her pain during intercourse
Mhm.
that I even knew it was a thing. We need to be able to talk about this, so that we're not isolated and struggling alone. And also just the shame that kind of overlays and works through sexuality, that is neutralized more and more the more we can actually talk with each other and connect. Because here's the thing, like every married woman has some way that she's dealing with sex in her marriage. It's not like, it's normal. It's normal that married women are having sex. And so we should be able to talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I try to normalize talking about sex with my friends because I'm sure we're wondering. I know I was like before I learned this world of finding you, Ellen Holloway, and I'm sure there's maybe others I'm not thinking of. But so I think like if I'm not bringing it up, if they're not hearing it from me that sex is good and hey, you have a clitoris and it's amazing, like then where are they going to hear it from? So I try to share the good news in that regard. And yeah,
That's
to
so good.
normalize these conversations, totally.
And normalize a positive, healthy, appreciative outlook, because women, I've had other women say like, well, I picked up this attitude from my marriage prep leader or my NFP teacher that like I owe my husband sex and I should be making sure he gets it. So, we could be passing along without even realizing it, these sorts of attitudes. And so we have to just be really proactive, I think, about modeling freedom, positivity, just a positive vision here that is healthy.
Yeah. So we've made the connection between thriving sex lives and talking about NFP. And now I'd like to bring in the pro life connection. So many people may not immediately see the link between being pro life and having healthy marriages, healthy, thriving sex lives. I'd love to hear from you if there's a way we can connect those dots of being pro life, maybe another word would be being open to life, and having healthy marriages, awesome sex lives. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's all part of the culture of life, a culture that affirms the dignity of the human person. I think people would do really well to go back and read St. John Paul II's document, Evangelium Vitae from
Mm-hmm.
1995. And you'll absorb and soak up this vision of what a culture of life is and what is a civilization of love. And then within that civilization of love, absolutely. A thriving marriage where there's respectful, mutual, good, healthy sexuality happening in that marriage, that's very life affirming, right? And that's a couple that's resilient and strong. Even if there are challenges along the way, they are welcoming the babies that God sends them and with love, with joy, with trust and faith and hope. That's really what's at the heart of it. This love and this hope, at the heart of a vibrant love life in a Catholic marriage, and also at the heart of a family that receives the children God sends to it with open arms and that extends their arms to help those who are struggling with unexpected pregnancies, who can step in and help in ministries that care for women in unexpected pregnancies, that can walk with them, can donate your time, your energy, your money to serving with, letting your hands be Jesus' hands to help serve women who are struggling with an unexpected pregnancy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know earlier we touched a little bit on how contraception culture can feed into both the breakdown of marriage, infidelity, and the devaluation of life. It really breaks my heart when I have pro life friends who are not Catholic but would say they're anti abortion, but then they are pro contraceptives that are not abortifacients like condoms. It really breaks my heart that there's this disconnect. I've had Protestant friends say to me when I give the Catholic belief on sex being procreative and unitive that I don't think you're truly uniting with your spouse when you're wearing a condom. And they still say to me, but I believe I am. And that's, we can agree to disagree kind of thing. And anyways, I just bring this up because I think what people aren't seeing is that in this contraceptive mentality, if I'm using that word correctly, that it is abortion culture of not being like open to life, seeing children as a blessing, letting God be the Lord over our fertility. I hope I'm making sense.
Yeah, it's really about like seeing the sacredness of stewarding your fertility and sexuality instead of being the master of it. I think that you got your finger on it there, that we have this humility and awe and reverence in our Catholic viewpoint on, in the teachings. Like we should
Mhm.
adopt the church's teachings on this, of viewing our sexuality with this humility and awe and reverence for how God designed it, instead of manipulating our own will over it. So that, that with a condom or a diaphragm, or to block the full meaning of that embrace, because it is diminishing. Yeah. And yeah, it's hard. It is hard to convince someone of that if they're not seeing it, but we just speak the truth with love and pray and be the witness there. Absolutely. I mean, I think if you look at the numbers, that's pretty compelling. Where contraception is more used, abortion is also more
Yeah.
prevalent. That they go hand in glove. Who gives out so many condoms? It's Planned Parenthood, because they want the repeat business. Like they've got numbers. They're like, we want to have like 5 abortions per client. They know condoms are going to fail.
Mhm.
And your intention with using that condom is to have sex without being pregnant. And then if you get
Mhm.
pregnant, well, then next line of defense there, like next line of recourse is, okay, then we'll go to abortion, and which is heartbreaking. I agree with you, Melanie.
Yeah, I just looked it up that approximately half of women who seek abortions were on at least one type of contraception the cycle that they became pregnant. So I try to preach to the high heavens that more contraception does not equal less abortion. It's just equaling more sex, and then there equals then more unexpected pregnancies.
Yeah, yeah. A contraceptive mentality feeds an abortion mentality, an abortive mentality, for sure.
So, what role do you see Catholic sexual ethics playing in building a culture that truly supports life?
Yeah, I think it helps show the truth of the dignity of the human person and the true meaning of marriage, sex, masculinity, and femininity. And in the big picture, in this comprehensive big picture, it's coherent, it's logical, it's good, it's life affirming, and it's truly affirming of the value of each human person, the spouses, babies.
Mhm.
I think this vision that we have, this Catholic sexual ethics, it is so needed to combat the darkness and the lies in our culture, and it's truly at the heart of renewal of culture. This is the battleground. Sexuality, marriage, family, this is the battleground
Yeah,
right
yeah.
now for whether a culture is going to flourish and live and have hope and go forward, or whether we're going to commit cultural suicide as a people.
Hmm.
It's this. It's, are we going to contracept and abort and sterilize and mutilate ourselves into extinction? I believe that there is hope because the Holy Spirit is always at work, and God is always at work renewing the culture and giving us this hope and light. And I've just seen so many conversions, people coming into the Catholic Church because of our teaching on the truth of sexuality and the truth of marriage. It resonates in people's hearts if they're truly seeking and open to it, and it is saving souls. And I
Yeah,
really
yeah.
do believe in a renaissance and a renewal that's possible for our culture right now.
So, now for some practical encouragement for Catholic couples listening who might be struggling with intimacy. What would be the best first step you would recommend someone to take toward a more joyful and connected sex life?
Well, I would love to invite them to listen to my podcast, My Delight, and to check out it's for the wives. I would love to invite them to check out my Enhancing Intimacy Guide for Catholic Wives. So if you go to the canafeast.com website, that's the umbrella website for our marriage ministry. But you can find that on there, this Enhancing Marital Intimacy Guide, 9 skills for body, mind, and spirit for Catholic women. And then my husband is developing a course for men as well. He actually rolled it out for the first time this spring, and he's going to do it again this fall. So he has a guide for men as well. So if you get on my email list by downloading my guide, you can ask me for the man version, for the man guide. I can send that to you as well. But yeah, look for Nathan, and his course is called Holy Desires.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm so happy that he's doing that. Have you had it that simultaneously a wife or a fiance is with you and the
Yes.
spouse to be's with him at the same time?
Yeah, love it. Absolutely love it. We did. We had several couples that were, the
Oh,
husband was in
cool.
Nathan's class and the wife was in my class, and we just loved them, and they got like double benefit, and it's happening again this fall as well. I know it.
Wow,
Yeah.
I bet they were just blessed with so many graces for their upcoming marriage or their new marriage. That's awesome.
Thanks.
So, for the single women now, discerning marriage, what can they begin learning about their bodies and fertility that will help them later? I know we touched on it's okay to look up anatomical designs
Mhm.
of the female genitalia. Is there any other things you'd recommend for the Catholic single woman desiring to be married, what she can start learning now?
Yeah, she can absolutely learn a fertility awareness method now. So that would be great. And then I would encourage her to download my free guide as well, the Enhancing Marital Intimacy Guide, just to start forming her ideas in a positive, healthy way. And then I have a podcast episode in which I interviewed Maria Mumau from the Intentional Single, which is a wonderful Catholic ministry for single women. And we talked all about, all the things for Catholic single women and what's appropriate and what they can be doing now and what to look out for. So I would encourage women to go look on my podcast for that interview for single women with Maria Mumau that I had, Maria Spears Mumau on my Delight podcast. But yeah, I highly recommend their Intentional Single ministry that she and her business partner, I think it's Megan, have. Yeah.
Nice. I just want to give my 2 cents for the single Catholic woman out there desiring to be married. You know, um, I don't mean this in a bad way, but like the grass always looks greener. But what I mean by that is like when you're single, you're longing to be married and a mother. And then when you're a mother and married, you miss the single girl you
Of
once
the
were.
freedom,
Yeah, that was
the
exactly
grief.
the word that came to my mind. And the freedom that came with that. I was telling my spiritual director a couple weeks ago that oh, I'm getting things mixed up, but I had just a couple weeks ago, I had gone to adoration alone for the first time in it had to have been over a year. I have a 16-month-old son, and he's with me pretty much all the time. So it had been a while since I had just been in adoration alone and yeah, just in church without my son. And I missed the days when I was a college student, when I could just frequent daily mass and frequent adoration with all that just willy nilly like freedom.
Yeah.
Um,
Take it for granted.
but I reflect that I'm sure God is giving me all the graces in that one adoration visit I got, as if I was going to weekly adoration back when I was a college student. That I'm sure I'm getting equal, if not more, graces single in this state of life. But yeah, I just wanted to
Oh, yeah.
share
And you're
that.
being sanctified, like diaper by diaper. You're being sanctified, spit up. Maybe your child's past the spit up phase, but like all that is sanctifying. God is there as well, but it's less quiet, right? It's less calm and still.
Yeah. I can only, they'll put up with a noisy baby during mass. I don't know if people will be so generous at an adoration chapel.
Yeah, yeah, I would bring my babies to adoration. I mean, I might sit in the back and I might take them out if they're getting really, but it's such a blessing. Usually it's like older retired age people and they all love kids. And yeah, I
Okay,
just want to encourage you, bring your baby, bring your kids
okay.
to adoration.
Thank you.
Because I've had like, and it's quicker too. You can't usually spend a whole hour if I was going to adoration with a young toddler, but I would spend some time and be like,
Yeah,
oh, got
yeah,
to
yeah.
take the baby, but we're together. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
so
yeah.
good.
Beautiful. Yeah, so I just wanted to put that out there for any young single ladies to enjoy the season, because yeah, you're always longing for the thing that you don't have, and then when you have it, you're like missing that past season of life. What would be one thing every Catholic woman should know about sex, marriage, and the body? And then where can people go to find you and work with you?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll answer the last question first. You can find me on canafeast.com, and my free enhancing marital intimacy guide is there. Or you can find me on my My Delight podcast. And then one thing women should know, I am going to say that sex should take longer than you think. That's the one thing you should know, that you need to be relaxed and emotionally connected and spend a lot of time in foreplay that includes the clitoris, and that, yeah, like aim for about an hour. So I know that's not one thing, but hopefully it's succinct enough that, you can like put that all together.
Yeah. Sarah, I have one last question I'm asking all my guests. What would you say to the young girl who finds herself unexpectedly pregnant, or to the Catholic couple who's struggling with church teaching about contraception? What would you say to either party to encourage them to be open to life?
To the young girl who finds herself unexpectedly pregnant, I would say, how can I help you? And unexpected pregnancy can come with unexpected joy. That you deserve unexpected joy, and this is possible for you. And and then I would say, like, what do you need? How can I support you? Where can we connect with resources, with people who will surround you with love and walk with you? And there are so many great ministries out there that can do that. To the couple struggling with church teaching about contraception, to be open to life, I would say that it's worth it, that the road is narrow that leads to life, and the way is open and broad and easy for those who want to go the way of destruction. That the followers of Jesus are invited to take up their cross and follow him, and the cross leads to life. And so if you're finding NFP is a cross, if you're finding it's a cross to give up contraception, know that this is a life-giving cross that is freeing you from harm that can hurt your marriage and hurt your soul. And it is making it possible for you to enter into a deeper, fuller, richer life. But, the way to the resurrection is always by means of the cross. So don't be afraid of the cross. Don't be afraid of the hard. Yes, it can be hard, and you're not alone. And there's so many resources out there too. I would say also, I would encourage them. I know you've had Emily Frazee on your podcast, and she's really great at speaking to this message on her Total Wine blog and podcast. And she has a Substack as well, that she's really frank and realistic about acknowledging, sometimes NFP promoters, and I myself have been one for a long time, and I recognize this is a fault I have committed as well. Sometimes we can paint an overly rosy picture of how, like, you should switch to NFP because it's great and everything's going to be better when you do that, and your marriage will be better and your sex life will be better. And not mention, and you'll also have to make sacrifices, and you'll also have to communicate and struggle, and there will be frustrations. There will be all those hard things, but it will be worth it. It'll be so worth it. And it can lead you to fuller, deeper, richer life, connection, joy, grace, all those things. Yeah.
Wow, amazing. Let's embrace our crosses. Well, thank you so much, Sarah. I've really enjoyed chatting with you. I feel like I got a crash course, a refresher for everything that you preach. And I'm so thankful for you sharing your wisdom and all your insights. And yeah, thank you so much for coming on the Open to Life podcast.
Oh, well, thank you, Melanie, for hosting this beautiful space and having these kinds of conversations, for your boldness and your graciousness. And God bless you all listening. Take care.